I want to take a moment to reflect back on George Harrison's song, oh, sweet Lord, oh, my Lord. It's a song of beseeching. It's a song that I can identify with. The reason I think it's a timeless piece of art and music and expression is because I can relate to the fact that there are times where I feel that I am separate from God, that I am separate from the Lord, or in metaphysics, we would say the law. Oh, my sweet law. I feel at times separate from that, at times in my life where I have what I call those atheistic moments. I am aware of the challenge. I am aware of the shadow. I'm aware of the darkness. I'm aware that I am not who I want to be. I am aware that my circumstances are not what I want them to be. My direction may not feel like it's grounded. And so the song that George Harrison sings is a beseeching song. Oh my God, oh my Lord, oh my law, oh my divine, oh my source of creation. I really want to see you. I want to be with you. I want to spend time with you. I want to get to where you're at. When I think of this song, and the reason I titled what I'm going to talk about today, I use the word bridge, is because it's like from here to there. How do I get from here to there? There's one of the Indiana Jones movies, it's the third movie, and there's a scene, you can go on YouTube, and if you put in Indiana Jones and then type the name of the scene, it will come up for you. It's called A Leap of Faith. And there's so you type on this scene, and it's only a couple minutes long, a minute and a half or 2 minutes long. And in this movie, in the third movie, there's the typical Indiana Jones stuff. There's something he's going after, and it's filled with adventure and religion and folklore and spirituality and archaeology and good guys and bad guys. And there's all kinds of special effects and everything like that. It's a sweeping adventure. There's that going on. But there's a subplot in it too. And that is that we see him reunited with his father, who's played by Sean Connery. Sean Connery is one of my favorite actors. I mean, who wouldn't want to have Sean Connery as a dad, right? And he's just got that great brogue, and he just seems steady and strong and everything. And in this movie, he plays a real character. And he and Indiana Jones, the father and son, they've been estranged from each other, and they have problems in their relationship. And they're both very headstrong, and they both believe in what they believe, and they both are outspoken, and they're both very adventurous, and they both do pretty well on their own and things like that. And so their relationship has suffered because of that. And so in the course of the movie, the two begin to rekindle their love that they never lost, but they had. So that's one of the subplots of the movie. It's a very fun part of it to watch. Imagine these two guys who work things out the way that Hollywood does with all that energy. Well, in the Leap of Faith scene, Sean Connery has been mortally wounded or injured, and he's laying dying. And they're in some, like a lot of these movies, they're in some cave somewhere, some dark place. And Indiana Jones has to get somewhere to find the magical formula that will save his father from dying. His father is slowly passing away. It's very painful. He's writhing from pain. So Indiana Jones continues on in this dark, cavernous cave. And he comes out, and he's got to get to a chamber in the cave. And he walks out to this huge cathedral-like chasm. And you look down, and it seems to be absolutely bottomless. And you look up, and you can't see how far it goes. And across this cavern is the other end of the cave, another entrance to the cave. And there's absolutely no way to get there because there's just nothing there. So he doesn't know what to do. And so he pulls out his little notebook. Indiana Jones has these notes, and it's filled with all of his drawings. And it's got archetypes and folklore and religion and magic and anthropology and archaeology. It's all kind of put together. And, it'd be like now if we pulled out our phone, to bring up all of our stuff. So he pulls out this notebook, he's looking, he said, I can't possibly jump that far. My whip's not going to reach that far so I can grab a hold of something and pull me over or anything. He doesn't know what to do. He's sitting there looking at all this folklore and everything, these ancient ideas of religion. And the scene flashes to Sean Connery and he said, boy, you must believe. You must believe, boy. And Indiana Jones in the movie, he senses this energetically. He places his hand on his heart and he's looking at his book and said, it's about a leap of faith. That's what I have to do. That's the puzzle to get across this chasm. And so it shows him, and it's like Sean Connery is passing away, he's writhing. So Indiana Jones, it's very dramatic, like the movies. He picks up one foot and he slowly brings it forward to where nothing is. It's whatever he can see has nothing to do with the way over there. His foot comes down on something solid. And he's shocked. And he steps forward, and this stone path or bridge comes across to the other side where he can go and enter the same cave on the other side. And the scene is called Leap of Faith, but what's interesting to me is when you watch it, it's really steps of faith, because it starts with the first step. And then he's trying to find his balance. He's freaked out because of the height, because, like I said, the cavern is bottomless. He doesn't even know where it's going to go. And so he slowly begins to walk over. And there's almost like this humility that washes over him. And there's a smile that comes on his face as he gradually gets over there. He's halfway over, and he takes step by step by step. You have to believe, boy. You have to have faith. Faith when I don't see my way to the law, to Lord, to God. That's what George Harrison is singing about. What's interesting about George Harrison, when you think about him, his biography, is that he was someone who openly and publicly struggled with things. He struggled with drugs. He struggled with relationships. He struggled with the music business. He struggled with his bandmates. He struggled with being a public figure. He struggled with loneliness. He struggled with low self-esteem. There were times in his life where he struggled from physical issues. But we know that he was a deeply spiritual person. And I think that the song, he lets us into his altar, so to speak. And he makes a statement that I think we can all relate to. There's a gentleman by the name of Brian Brown Walker, who is an I Ching scholar. He's put together a great book on the I Ching. In fact, the book that I have, I bought here at the Chico Center, and I think it's still in the bookstore. I'm not sure. It's a great little book. And he says, in terms of working our way to healing, transformation, moving forward, negative emotions tempt us to abandon our effort. That's what Indiana Jones did. He was standing there. What's the negative emotion? I don't want to fall and die. I don't know what to do here. I don't see a way forward. And his other negative emotion, what about my dad? What am I doing? Negative emotions tempt us to abandon our effort. It is the greatest misfortune to do so. And he says, hold fast to truth and persevere. So I'm reading his book, and I'm thinking about the fire. I'm thinking about COVID. I'm thinking about changing times. I'm thinking about Afghanistan. I'm thinking about some issues in my life. So I'm holding the book, and I say back to, I say back to this gentleman, to Mr. Walker. I say, hold fast to what truth, dude? What are you talking about? So he goes on, as if he heard me. Do not act on your own. Seek the advice of divine intuition and remain patient. Sean Connery said, you got to believe, boy. You got to believe. Seek the advice of divine intuition and remain patient. An effort of union with the highest intelligence in sincerity, faith, and principle. That is the formula that brings about good fortune. Darkness distorts the light. Avoid attempting to force a completion. Go methodically and with quiet balance. It's interesting because he says here, an effort of union with the highest intelligence in sincerity, faith, and principle. That's what Indiana Jones showed us. He sincerely wanted to get to the other side. He sincerely wanted to get to the other side. Now that's really super important because I know that in the world that I've worked in as a minister, as a counselor, sometimes, and this is true, this has been true of me too, sometimes we think we want a healing, and we do. We're very uncomfortable. We don't like the way things are. We want to get to the other side. But something in consciousness is allowing us to attach to the problem. Do you really want to heal? Do you really want to get to the other side? In psychology, it's called stages of change. Some people show up to a counselor, a program, a church service, a minister, a practitioner, somebody. I really want to change. But does it really exist at the level of stages of change? I did a program years ago when I worked in parole years ago. Parole, rehab, we worked with drug addiction and criminality issues. And there was this idea of pay value. And sometimes when we get stuck, we think we want to go somewhere because we're uncomfortable, because things aren't going the way we'd like them to go. But yet, we have to really look at, is there a payoff in that? We weigh out, in the pay value of staying where we are, in psychology is the idea of familiarity, the fact that we know it, the fact that we have a history with it, the fact that it may not be perfect, but we know how to get there. And so the first part of it is sincerity. Do we really want to change? And the next one is faith. Once we have the sincerity, we grab a hold of the faith. Believe God is all there is. Believe that there are resources. Believe that there are powers in this universe that we cannot see. You see, a key to this whole thing with the Indiana Jones piece is the invisibility. How do I get there? Especially when there's all kinds of people sometimes in our lives that say, wait a minute, there's a bottomless pit here. You can't see the bottom. You can't jump that far. Nothing's going to work. We have those people who say that because, there's this idea of if we can't see the solution immediately. And that's what Sean Connery was trying to get him to say. Believe, have faith, and principle. Now, this is where I want to shift gears a little bit here, because in terms of the invisibility of the bridge, Ernest Holmes, if you were to grab a concordance of the Science of Mind textbook and to type in the word, or to look in to the word invisible, it's amazing what comes up. A whole bunch of his work, his material, is based on what he calls invisibility. And so Ernest Holmes would say, of course it's invisible. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's invisible. And I want to share with you some of what he says about the idea of invisibility. And his first one is, the essence of reality is invisible. The essence I want you to think for a moment of someone who loves you and who you love. And you both say it to each other. I love you. I love you. Okay? And we can see the outcome of the love. Love expressed, cohabitation, paying the bills together, going to the movies. But can we see love? No, we can't see it. We can't carry it in our pocket. We don't have it in a drawer at home. We can't go down to Walmart and buy some love. He says the essence of reality is invisible. So in this case, the essence of love. We can't see it, but we all know how powerful it is. Every single human being, we all know it. We've experienced it at some level. He said, all principles are invisible. Think of the morals and ethics by which you live your life. I live my life, right? Again, we can't buy these at Walmart. We can see the outcome of practicing them, but we can't see them. The idea of a principle, the idea of the 10 Commandments or the 12 steps or any other principles we might live our life by. Very personal principles. What we've learned when it comes to speaking the truth, what we've learned about the possibility of healing. And Holmes says, we must trust the invisible. That's what Indiana Jones was showing us. That's what his father was trying to say. Have faith, believe, trust. Do you believe in the power of love? Do you believe in the power of some of your ethics and morals? Then you are trusting something that is completely invisible. If someone were to come to you, a young person or somebody, and say, gee, I don't really know how to live my life. What's my best way forward at this point? Maybe they're in a relationship issue. They're looking for some advice. You say, well, what's always worked for me is X, Y, Z. Why do we pass that information along? Because we believe in it. Because at some level, it's proven itself to us. And Ernest Holmes said, faith is an invisible intelligence to guide us. Faith is an invisible intelligence to guide us. Why do I have faith? Where does this come from? And then Holmes says about the idea of spiritual conviction. He says, pure faith is a spiritual conviction, an embodiment, an acceptance. If we believe that the Spirit incarnated in us can demonstrate, shall we be disturbed at what appears to contradict that? He said, hey, Indiana Jones, don't be disturbed. It's there. Source is there. Spirit is there. The bridge will appear. Your job is to take the first step. Your job is to be willing to let go of where you are and to make that step. There's an event in history that is very intriguing to me. And this history is part of my lifetime. It took place back in the 60s, the late 60s. And now it's historical. At the time it took place, I was rather young to really absorb the power of it. But now I look back in film clips of it, and media clips of it, and I find it to be very emotional. It illustrates what I've been talking about today, the bridge of healing. When Bobby Kennedy was running for president, and I always hesitate to evoke a political figure because I know people have strong feelings. But whatever feelings that we might have, or some people might have about Bobby Kennedy, whether he was right or wrong or up or down, I believe that I would like to say that we can all agree on an instance where he showed up in the ideals that we're talking about today. The bridge of healing. what it takes to step on that bridge, the faith and the belief. So when Bobby Kennedy was running for president, Martin Luther King was unfortunately assassinated. And he came into a city in Indiana and was going to speak that night. And he had been flying, and it's not like today where everybody's got phones and access to news constantly. You know, his plane touched down. He was about ready to go speak to a rally. Thousands of people gathered, maybe tens of thousands, I don't know. And he was informed that Martin Luther King had passed away. And he had become close to Martin Luther King, and they had allied politically around poverty issues, race issues, the war in Vietnam, those kinds of things. And Robert Kennedy admired King very much. So he shows up at this rally, and he knows that people have been, probably at the rally already for a long time, had been coming to the rally, had not been maybe listening to the radio, watching TV, or it wasn't in the newspapers yet. It didn't just happen. So Bobby Kennedy goes up, and people are chanting. They're chanting his name. And they got their big signs. They're waving. We love you, Bobby. Bobby for president. And all this kind of stuff. All this stuff happens at political rallies. He comes up and he says, "Good evening." He said, "There's something serious I have to share with you, and can you lower your signs?" But they're cheering. He calms the crowd. Eventually they catch on. They're quiet. They lower the signs. And he allows things to become quiet. And he tells them, he says, "I've got some bad news." Now, a large percentage of those people, probably at least half, maybe even more, were African American people. Because African American people at that time, as a group, had coalesced behind Bobby Kennedy. They were his biggest constituents. African Americans, Mexican Americans, Native Americans, these people had really come together for Bobby Kennedy. He's a white guy. He's affluent. He's a Kennedy. The issues that were in the forefront of the African American community at that time, poverty and lack of access to things and those kinds of things. That was not a life he had lived. So he said, "I've got some bad news." He said, "Martin Luther King has been killed." And he tells them, that he was killed by a white person. And he shares with them, he said, basically, it's obvious he's not Black, he's not African American, but he talked about it, I lost a brother who was killed in the same way by a white person. And the summer of that year in America had seen race riots in America. And all that was in the air. People were angry, they were fed up, they were done and rioting. So Bobby Kennedy standing on the edge of a tinderbox, politically and socially. And he talks about what Martin Luther King had dedicated his life to: peace, love, wisdom, transformation, unity, coming together, solving issues, not violence, not rioting. King never endorsed those things. And he said, can we move forward and honor his legacy by doing what I think America really needs, which is for us to come together, and to love, and to forgive, and to show compassion. It's incredible to say there's a bridge that I want us to walk on that we can't see. Because in America at that time, you could not see that bridge. Just like right now, there's some bridges we can't see. We can't see the bridge that ends COVID. We can't see the bridge that turns around the fire experience in Northern California. We can't see the bridge that will bring about healing in Afghanistan. We maybe don't see the bridge that will heal the divisions within our own country, within the world. But that bridge exists. You must believe, boy. You must believe, girl. You must take a step of faith. You must believe that the invisible is ever powerful. To step forward. That is the work that we have to do. That is the work that this movement has been pushing forward throughout its history. Our metaphysical ancestors, the ancestors of New Thought, religious science, unity, all these other movements, were people driven by the idea of healing. Phineas Quimby, Emma Curtis Hopkins, Ernest Holmes, the Fillmores, all the other people, books we read, the great old hardback books of this movement, those ideas. It's about healing. How do we heal? How do we change? How do we step onto the bridge of transformation? That's what Bobby King was saying. That's what we still have to say. Indications are that among the political class, I'm talking about the people involved in politics, among the African Americans who were involved in that what he had to say that night caused them to move into action in the political system and to lend themselves to that effort. Where are we on that bridge? I don't know where we are. That's part of the invisible to me. I'm not a psychic. I'm not a prophet. I don't know where we are. But I do know, like George Harrison, I yearn and I beseech spirit to be into I want to thank you for today. It's been wonderful. So now we want to move into the offertory